Well, there was a cartoon recently by Johannes Leek in the Australian. It showed these people looking very miserable. They're sitting around the dining room table looking very, very unhappy, and they say, what the man is saying to the family is, if renewables get any cheaper, we're stuffed. If renewables get any cheaper, we're stuffed. And that's what's happening, isn't it? We're being told renewables are cheaper, but then our electricity prices, as they put in more renewables, the electricity prices go up.
That's right, because there are so many subsidies with I don't call them renewables, I call them what they are, solar and wind. I used to call them unreliables, but people didn't know what I meant. But they're not renewables. The only thing renewable about solar and wind, David, is that every 10 to 15 years they have to be replaced. The solar panels exhaust and become inefficient. The wind turbines have a limited life. And so over the life of one coal-fired power station, you'll have 3 sets of solar panels and 3 sets of wind turbines, maybe 4. And so that's what's renewable about these mongrel things. But their solar and wind can only exist with subsidies. They're highly inefficient. They're very low energy density. They're very expensive in terms of capital costs. And they need so many other things to work. To provide reliable power, they need huge battery capacity, which is not available. And they also need expensive firming factors because they're unstable. Their power supply is unstable, it's asynchronous, whereas coal and hydro and nuclear are stable and synchronous. So there's nothing going for solar and wind apart from very remote locations when you can't connect to the grid. They're expensive, unreliable, unstable, insecure, and they're environmentally very, very dangerous and very, very damaging. The other thing that's happened is that with the safeguard provisions, there is now going to be a fine on people who use coal-fired power. That's basically it. And a coal-fired power station will be paying a fine. Not only does solar and wind get a subsidy, but the coal-fired power stations get a fine put on them if they don't make certain cuts. And of course they can't make the cuts. But all for nothing, David, because there's no evidence anywhere in the world that carbon dioxide from human activity affects the climate and needs to be cut.
And they're also reducing the amount of food-producing land because they're in places where there used to be farms, and they're cutting swathes, for example, through the national park at Kosciuszko, to provide the transmission lines that have to go through forests and so on. So they are very anti-environmental and against the fact that we are a great food-producing nation and we shouldn't be occupying land in valuable food-producing areas just for these wind farms and so on.
You're absolutely correct. You know, if you want to build a house, good luck. You won't be able to get permission to chop down a tree. If you want to build a mine, if you want to build a commercial establishment, you won't get it, permission to do it. But if you want to build a solar panel or solar, I don't call them solar farms or wind farms because that's a cute word that they have used deliberately to sanctify these things. They're solar monstrosities, they're solar wind turbine complexities. They're hideous, and there are significant carcinogenic chemicals that leach out of solar panels, and they get into the soil, they sterilise the soil, they wash into the creeks. And in Brisbane, we've got a creek where they're planning on building one of the world's largest solar complexes near a creek which flows into the Brisbane River, which then flows into the water supply for about 2.5 million people in southeast Queensland, including Brisbane. So cities like Toowoomba can access that water, Gold Coast can access that water, Beenleigh, Bow Desert, Ipswich, all use that water. And if they build those panels, build that solar complex there in that catchment, not only will they be subject to floods, which they have not planned for and have not modelled, they'll also be subject to leaching. And David, they're in a major storm belt, which means it's prone to hail and direct damaging. But these chemicals leach out even with an intact panel, but with the hail, they certainly just get flushed out. So we have got what we're doing is we're sending our coal, which is the best in the world, to China. China generates electricity with it.